This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm 32 and usually buried in my work as a freelance graphic designer. I needed a break, so I went to my family's old lake house for a week. It has been in the family since the 1970s. It has its charm, but honestly, the creaky floorboards and faded wallpaper can feel pretty spooky too. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. On my second night, I woke up to a soft thud. I thought maybe it was just the house settling. But then it happened again. Thud, thud. My heart raced as I grabbed my flashlight. I had been avoiding the attic, but I needed to know what was going on up there. I climbed the stairs slowly. The thuds grew louder. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. At the attic door, I hesitated. What if there was something up there? I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, I found strange photographs pinned to the wall. They were all faces I didn't recognize, but each of their eyes seemed to follow me. It felt wrong. I was drawn to them, but also repulsed. I turned and ran back to my room. I thought I might be imagining things. The next evening, I found the attic door slightly ajar. I hadn't opened it, but it was swaying slowly. My stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to remain away. But the curiosity tugged at me again. I peeked inside. The photographs had moved. One was tilted, as if trying to say something I couldn't understand. I felt like they were watching me even closer now. On the third night, I stepped outside to enjoy the peace of the lake. What I found made my stomach drop. There were footprints barefoot and leading from the lake to my front door. I stood frozen. No one else was there. My heart raced as I measured the distance. Maybe someone had come earlier. A chill ran down my spine. I shook my head, trying to reason with myself. Then I heard something. A whisper, almost like a voice carried by the wind. I couldn't make out any words. I turned quickly, looking for someone. No one was there. Just the lake. Just silence. The feeling of being watched crawled over me. Later that night, I lay in bed wide awake. My thoughts raced back to the attic. The photographs felt alive. Why were they all up there? Who were those people? And why was I hearing things? The fear settled deep. The next morning, I left the lake house early. I drove back to the city, but the memories haunted me. Were the photographs just old faces? Or was there something dark hidden in my family's past? I tried to push it aside but kept questioning everything. Even now, I can't shake the fear. I keep seeing those faces. I keep feeling that presence. I wonder if I'll ever really escape their gaze or the footprints that led to my door. The lake house was meant to bring me peace, but instead, it left me with questions I can't answer. Weeks passed since I left the lake house, but my mind was still trapped there. I tried to bury the feelings, but they resurfaced during quiet moments. It felt like the weight of those photographs clung to me. And the footprints haunted my every step. One afternoon, I decided to clear my head. I called an old friend, Jess, who had been part of countless family trips to the lake. Maybe she could shed some light on the mystery that now plagued me. I didn't mention the voices or the footprints. I didn't want to sound crazy. Over coffee, Jess seemed amused when I brought up the lake house. "You remember all those ghost stories we used to hear?" she asked, laughing. I nodded. They were silly tales, just old wives' tales shared by the lake. But suddenly, Jess grew serious. "I think some of them might be based on reality," she said, her eyes glinting with mischief. "What do you mean?" I asked, intrigued. "Do you remember the old caretaker? Mr. Alden?" She wondered. I remembered the gruff man who had worked at our lake house. He used to tell us stories about the people who once lived there. They were often strange, filled with excitement but also a hint of darkness. Yeah, I remember him. Why? I asked. She hesitated, then leaned in closer. I heard he went missing a few years back. No one knows what happened to him. Just disappeared. My heart raced. That felt connected to my fears. Do you think that's what the photographs are about? I asked, eager for some clarity. Jess's face turned serious. It's possible. People say he had a collection of old photos. Said they were connected to the legends of the lake. My thoughts spiraled. Was that what I saw? The very faces that haunted the attic? The next day, I drove to the local library, determined to dig deeper. I wanted to find anything about Mr. Alden or the photographs. I spent hours combing through old newspaper clippings. Most were faded, but one caught my eye. It detailed a series of tragic accidents at the lake over the decades. The names were all familiar. Lost relatives, friends, even my grandparents' names were mentioned. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my hands steady. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. Among the accidents listed was a fire at the lake house, decades ago. The article claimed it was connected to a family that vanished without a trace. They'd been last seen in the attic. Chills ran through me. I had to know more. I thought about going back to the lake house. I felt drawn to it, as if I could uncover answers to the questions plaguing me. But what if it was dangerous? Then, I received a text from Jess. I found something else. My heart raced. That urgency pulled me in. I asked her to meet me, desperate for more information. As I left the library, I felt a sudden chill. The shadows around me seemed darker, deeper. Something in the pit of my stomach twisted. I glanced back and nearly gasped. A figure stood in the distance, almost blending into the trees. But before I could make sense of it, it vanished. I stopped dead in my tracks. That wasn't just my imagination. Someone was watching me. I stood frozen, my heart racing as I tried to piece together what I had just seen. The figure in the distance swirled in my mind like smoke. Was it Mr. Alden? An echo of the past? Or was it something far worse? I felt a sense of urgency pulling me forward, but also a heavy reluctance. I hurried to my car, glancing back one last time at the spot where the figure had been. Nothing. I shook my head, convincing myself it was just a trick of the light or my imagination getting the best of me. I forced the thoughts aside and focused on Jess. I needed answers. When I met her at the cafe, she looked concerned. You okay? You seem a little on edge. Yeah, I hesitated. I thought I saw someone watching me after I left the library. What do you mean someone? Her brow furrowed. Like a person? Yeah, but they were gone before I could get a better look, I said, trying to sound casual. Anyway, what did you find? Jess pulled out her phone and scrolled quickly. There's a lot of talk about Mr. Alden around the community. People say he had some strange interests. Like, he would collect artifacts related to the lake's history. Artifacts? I repeated, feeling a sense of dread. What kind? Things like old trinkets, but also photos of past residents. He was obsessed. Some even say he believed the lake had a soul. Her voice dropped, and she glanced around as if worried someone might overhear. That's creepy, I managed to say, feeling the hairs on my neck stand up. But what about the family that vanished? I think they were linked to him somehow, Jess said, biting her lip. I came across a mention that they used to visit the lake to seek guidance on some kind of ritual. Maybe they were trying to commune with whatever he was obsessed with. My stomach twisted. Rituals? Communing? It felt as though an invisible weight pressed down on me, and the room seemed to close in. I don't know, Jess. This is all starting to sound too wild, I said. But the doubt in my voice shrank as the memories flooded back, the photographs, the whispers, the emptiness in the attic. Suddenly, Jess's face changed. Wait a minute. I found a name: Clara. Clara Whitmore. She's the last one who was seen at the lake house before it burned down. The name struck me, resonating in my mind like a bell ringing. What did she have to do with all this? What happened to her? Jess's voice turned hushed. She was never found. Just like Mr. Alden. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I remembered the strange feeling of being watched. I have to go back to the lake house, I declared, surprising even myself. Are you serious? Jess looked worried. I need to see if there's anything left. If I can understand what happened, I insisted. I felt compelled, an unseen force pushing me towards the truth. When I stood up to leave, Jess grabbed my arm, her expression urgent. Please, be careful. If there's something wrong, don't go alone. Okay. I'll be on my guard, I promised, but I also knew there was no turning back now. I would return to that house, no matter the risk. As I drove, dark clouds gathered overhead, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. I had to face whatever awaited me at the lake house. But when I arrived, the first thing I noticed was the front door slightly ajar. A chill swept through me. I wasn't alone anymore. I stepped inside and called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" No answer. That silence settled like a thick fog, wrapping itself around me. And then I heard it, a whisper, so faint I almost missed it. Help me. It was time to uncover the truth, one way or another. I took a breath, forcing myself to step further into the house. The dim light filtered through the cracked windows, painting everything in hues of gray. My eyes darted around the place, searching for any sign of movement, any indication that I wasn't alone. Hello? I called again, more firmly this time. No response. The air felt thick with memories, both comforting and terrifying at once. I moved toward the living room, where the floor creaked beneath my feet. It smelled musty, like something had been trapped here for too long. The remnants of old furniture loomed like shadows in the corners, beckoning me closer. There it was again, the whisper. Help me. It came from upstairs. My heart raced as I weighed my options. I wanted to flee, to drive away and never come back. But the urge to find out what lay hidden here was stronger. Slowly, I ascended the staircase, the handrail rough against my palm. Each step echoed, turning the quiet into a haunting chorus. When I reached the top, the hallway stretched in front of me, dim lights flickering like spirits trying to communicate. I glanced into the first room. It was a child's bedroom, untouched for years. The toys were dusty, the bed unmade. I turned away, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. Then, I saw it, an old-fashioned mirror hung on the wall, its surface cracked. I felt drawn to it. As I approached, I noticed a small, faded note tucked into the frame. My fingers trembled as I pulled it out. Clara's game. It's not too late to play, it read in shaky handwriting. Panic surged through me. Who was Clara? What game? My mind raced, connecting threads that felt just out of reach. Suddenly, the whisper fractured into a scream, chilling me to the bone. Help me. I stepped back, my heart pounding against my chest. But something compelled me to keep moving. I glanced down the hall, and the door at the end stood ajar, almost inviting. I made my way to it, the scream from before still ringing in my ears. As I pushed the door open, a wave of cold air hit me. The room was dark, cluttered with boxes and forgotten belongings, but something shimmered at the center. I moved closer, and my breath caught in my throat. There, in the middle of the floor, was a photograph. It was of a young woman with long hair, a smile that looked both vibrant and sad. Clara? As I picked it up, I realized I wasn't alone anymore. A figure shifted in the corner, half hidden in shadow. My blood ran cold as I met the stranger's gaze, hollow eyes and a crooked smile that sent chills down my spine. I stumbled back, the photo slipping through my fingers. It hit the floor with a soft thud, the glass shattering. Everything went dark as the lights flickered and then died, leaving me in total silence. A presence loomed closer, making my skin crawl. This was no longer just a quest for answers. Then everything went still. I couldn't breathe. And just before I felt a warm breath on my neck, I whispered, "Who are you?" The darkness responded with a laugh that echoed through the room, unyielding and sinister. The laugh faded, replaced by a heavy silence that swallowed my panic. I blinked, trying to make sense of the blackness surrounding me. My hands fumbled along the wall, seeking a switch, anything to banish the quiet. But there was nothing. Just when I thought my heart might stop from fear alone, a faint glow flickered to life in the corner of the room. I squinted, focusing on the light. It danced like a firefly, beckoning me closer. I moved cautiously, each step hesitant. The light pulled me in, revealing an old lantern perched atop a stack of boxes. I picked it up, my fingers brushing decades of dust away. As I clicked the switch, a warm glow filled the room, illuminating the corners that felt frozen in time. That's when I saw it, the shattering glass. The photograph of Clara lay shattered beneath my feet, pieces glimmering like forgotten memories. I knelt to gather what I could, my heart still racing. As I collected the fragments, I noticed something else, a small, ornate box, partially hidden under the clutter. Curiosity piqued, I brushed the dust away and opened it. Inside lay a delicate silver necklace, its chain tangled but its charm glinting softly. Engraved on the charm was the name, Clara. "What are you doing?" A voice broke through the air, startling me. I looked up, adrenaline surging. The figure from before emerged from shadow. The same hollow eyes stared back, but now the smile seemed less sinister, almost pleading. "You shouldn't have touched that." I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding wildly. "Who are you? What do you want?" I knew I was in danger, yet there was something in their gaze that held me captive. "They took her," the figure whispered, becoming animated. "The game, you have to finish it before she can be free." "Finish what?" I stammered, still clutching the necklace as though it held the answers I desperately sought. "Clara's game," the figure repeated, voice low and urgent. "It's the only way. You have to find the others." Before I could ask what they meant, the lights flickered back on, throwing the room into harsh brightness. I winced at the sudden change, but when I opened my eyes, the figure was gone. Panic clawed at my throat. I couldn't just stand here. They might have vanished, but the weight of their words pressed down on me. I needed to understand what was happening. With the necklace still clenched in my hand, I scanned the room. The weight of Clara's name lingered like an echo. This wasn't just about an old house, it was more than just lost memories. I had to uncover the truth, not just for Clara, but for every soul caught in this house's web. Making my way toward the door, I felt a shift in the air. Something was stirring, as if the house was alive, and it felt like it was watching me again. I hesitated, but then I heard the whisper return, softer and more urgent this time. "Help me." There was no turning back now. I stepped out into the hallway, the chill creeping back into my bones. The game was calling, and I was its next player. The hallway was narrow, the walls lined with peeling wallpaper that gave off a musty odor. The air felt thick and heavy, each breath a reminder of my isolation. I gripped the necklace tighter as I moved forward, its cold surface grounding me in the moment. There were doors on either side, all closed, each one potentially hiding another piece of this twisted puzzle. I knew I shouldn't stay here long. The pressure of the house was building around me. I reached for the nearest door, my hand trembling as I turned the handle. It creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with dusty furniture. A grand piano sat silent in one corner, its keys yellowed and cracked. I stepped inside, feeling an unsettling weight settle over me. There was something in here, something that didn't want to be disturbed. Then I heard a soft melody. It floated through the air, haunting and beautiful. I froze, heartbeat racing. The sound was coming from the piano. No one else was here. I took a cautious step towards it, each footfall muffled against the old carpet. As I approached, the music stopped abruptly. My breath hitched. I glanced around the room, and what I saw made my stomach drop. A figure stood by the window, staring out into the darkness. I couldn't see their face, but I could feel the weight of their gaze. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, though my voice trembled. They turned slowly. It was a woman, her features obscured by shadows. She raised a hand, and for a moment, I thought she might beckon me closer. Instead, she pointed towards a framed picture hanging on the wall. I stepped closer, feeling the pull of her gesture. The frame held an old photograph of Clara, smiling with a group of friends. My breath caught as I recognized the others in the picture. Each one was a name from the whispers I had heard. They all looked happy then, unaware of the fate that loomed over them. The woman suddenly rushed past me, her form flickering like a candle. I turned, but she was gone. Panic seized me again. I had to get out. I dashed for the door, but something held me back. That melody returned, louder now, urging me to reconsider. I glanced back at the piano. The keys were moving on their own, a ghostly hand playing a mournful tune. It felt like a warning. As I backed away, a loud bang echoed from the far end of the hallway. I jumped, adrenaline surging through my veins. Whatever was happening here was intensifying. The whisper returned with a vengeance, "Find us. Finish the game." In that moment, I understood. Every second I hesitated was another moment lost for Clara and the others. I had to uncover the truth behind this game and free them. I took a deep breath and bolted into the hallway, my mind racing with the next step. My heart raced as I searched for more doors, each one another chance to uncover what had happened in this house. I needed to find the others, but they could also be my greatest threat. It was time to face the darkness. What I hadn't expected was how the shadows were closing in, as if they were aware of my quest. A familiar laugh echoed again, and this time it felt personal. I shivered. Whatever I was about to find could change everything. I dashed down the hallway, my pulse pounding in my ears. Shadows flickered as I passed each door, as if they were alive, waiting to reveal their secrets. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But I couldn't stop now. Clara needed me. I hesitated before the next door, my hand hovering above the handle. This one felt different, charged with energy I couldn't quite place. It was as if the house itself was urging me to continue. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. Inside, it was darker. A dim light flickered from an old lamp in the corner, illuminating dust motes swirling in the air. The room was cluttered, filled with a tangle of old chairs and crates. A chill crawled down my spine, and I stepped inside, letting the door creak shut behind me. There, in the center of the clutter, was a table covered in strange artifacts, trinkets and photographs, each telling a story I couldn't quite grasp. I leaned closer, noticing one of the trinkets. It was a small figurine of a woman, her expression eerily familiar. It was the same look as the woman I had seen by the piano. "What did you do?" I whispered, feeling foolish speaking to an inanimate object. As if in response, the light flickered again, and the atmosphere shifted. A murmur filled the room. My heart skipped. I recognized that voice. It was Clara's. "Please, help us," she begged, her voice echoing from all directions. I stumbled back, my eyes scanning the room for the source. Was she trapped here, too? Clara. Where are you? The room seemed to close in around me, the air thickening. The artifacts on the table started to rattle, as if shaking with suppressed energy. Just then, a loud crash came from outside. My heart raced. Maybe it was a way out, or a sign that I was running out of time. I forced myself to look away from the table and hurried to the window. Outside, shadows danced under the moonlight. A figure moved through the trees, their outline indistinct but familiar in a way that made my blood run cold. That laugh echoed again, sending chills down my spine. It was right behind me, mocking and sinister. I spun around, but the room was empty again. What is happening? I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. Suddenly, from behind the table, something caught my eye. There was a small notebook half buried under a pile of crumpled papers. I yanked it free and flipped it open. The pages were filled with scrawls, names I recognized, and strange symbols. Then I saw it, a drawing that made my breath hitch. It was a sketch of the house, marked with red XS. One of them pointed directly to where I was standing. I turned, panic surging in me. What does this mean? But before I could process it, the ground beneath me began to rumble. That was when I knew I had to leave. I felt the oppressive force of the house growing stronger, demanding something from me. I couldn't stay here any longer. With the notebook clutched tightly in my hands, I rushed for the door, but it slammed shut in front of me. The shadows deepened, swirling dangerously. Find us, the voice beckoned again, this time filled with urgency. I took a step back, terror flooding my senses. I knew I was running out of time. As I turned to face the growing darkness, I felt a shift in the air. Someone was watching me, and they were not here to help. I needed to figure out what was at stake before it was too late. The door trembled against my back as I pressed against it, my breath quickening. I felt trapped, the air thickening with tension. Shadows swept through the corners of the room, creeping closer, and I could almost hear them whispering. They were alive, and they were waiting. Clara! I yelled, my voice breaking. I hoped somehow she would hear me. Maybe she could break the spell of this horrible room. Or maybe she was already lost to whatever darkness lurked in the house. The ground shook harder, and the table began to rattle violently. I glanced back at the artifacts, now shrouded in darkness, as if they were steeped in a powerful magic. The notebook fell from my fingers, landing with a thud. I couldn't stay still. I rushed to the far wall, my heart pounding. In the darkness, I spotted an outline, something that looked like a doorframe, hidden behind a curtain of dust. Without thinking, I pushed aside the curtain, revealing a small door, barely discernible from the wall. I grabbed the handle, the metal cold and unnerving. With a swift turn, it creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into complete darkness. I hesitated. What lay beneath? Would it lead me to Clara, or deeper into the shadows of this cursed place? Just then, I heard Clara again, her voice clearer this time. Help me. Please. It was a plea that ignited a spark of hope within me. I couldn't turn back. I stepped through the door and descended the stairs, each creaking step echoing in the silence. As I reached the bottom, I was hit with a rush of cold air. The room opened up before me, dimly lit by strange blue light that seeped from cracks in the walls. I froze, absorbing the scene. There were jars filled with murky liquid lining the shelves, each one containing something that looked like a body, twisted relics frozen in time. My stomach churned. At the center of the room stood a pedestal with a glowing crystal, pulsating with energy. My instinct screamed to turn back. I could feel the air thickening again, a pressure building as if the house were watching. I stepped toward the crystal, my fingers itching to reach for it. Somehow, I knew it was connected to Clara, a key to understanding what was happening. But as I reached out, a harsh laugh echoed around me, chilling my bones. Not yet. The voice was twisted, mocking. I stumbled back, panic flooding my veins. The jars rattled, and the shapes inside began to swirl, morphing into faces I recognized, all those who had vanished from the house. "Find us," Clara urged again, her voice now layered with the hushed tones of those trapped in the jars. They were desperate, pleading. I needed to choose. The crystal could either save them or spell my end. That's when I saw it, a glint of metal behind the pedestal, something sharp and dangerous. I had to act, but time was slipping away. Before I could decide, I heard a sound from above, a heavy thud, like footsteps racing toward me. Someone was coming down the stairs. I wasn't alone. I turned sharply, my breath catching in my throat. The footsteps grew louder, determined and heavy, echoing against the stone walls. The silence in the room shattered under their weight. My heart raced as I scanned my options. The glowing crystal pulsed quietly, its light beckoning me, but the mounting fear of whoever was emerging from above took over. I ducked behind the pedestal, hoping the shadows could hide me. The jars rattled alongside me, their contents swirling as if sensing the presence of another person. I clamped a hand over my mouth, forcing myself to breathe quietly. The footsteps stopped just above the staircase, and for a moment, all I could hear was the pounding of my heart and the whispers from the jars, growing desperate, "Help us, Clara." I whispered urgently, but I knew it was useless. She wasn't here. No one was except whatever was coming down the stairs. A figure appeared at the edge of the light, partly obscured by the shifting shadows. I couldn't make out their face, but I could see a glint of something metallic in their hand. Panic coursed through me. I wanted to run, but my legs felt glued to the ground. The figure stepped into full view, and my stomach dropped. It was a man, his face pale and gaunt, like he had not seen sunlight in years. His eyes gleamed with an unsettling intensity. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "This place is not what it seems." He raised the metal object, and my breath quickened. The blade gleamed under the blue light, slicing the darkness with its sharpness. "Leave now, while you still can," he warned. "This is where Clara is." I shouted, surprise and anger fueling my words. "I need to find her." He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of decay and earth, a warning of what had been buried in this house. "You think you can save her? Or are you looking for something else?" I didn't respond, my mind racing, remembering the faces in the jars and Clara's haunting voice. Was this man connected to them? Just then, I felt a crackle of energy in the air, the crystal's glow flickering. The man glanced nervously at it, fear crossing his expression. "No, not that," he yelled, taking an involuntary step back. That was my opening. I darted toward the pedestal, reaching for the glowing crystal, but he lunged forward, trying to grab my arm. A surge of power shot through me as I touched the crystal. It was like a shockwave, sending a pulse of energy, and suddenly everything was illuminated. The jars erupted with light, and the faces inside screamed as the energy barreled past me. The man faltered, his expression a mix of horror and rage. "You don't know what you're doing," he shouted, backing away. But it was too late. The crystal's glow enveloped the room, and the air crackled with the power that had escaped its confines. In a heartbeat, the faces in the jars began to dissolve into shimmering light, rising upward, pulling me along. I struggled to hold on, terrified of being swept away. As I fought the pull, I locked eyes with the man. The fear in his gaze made me realize he was not the only one afraid. Then, without warning, everything went dark. The illumination vanished, leaving me utterly alone in the void. I could hear Clara's voice fading, "Help me!" Panic surged again, and I grasped at the darkness. I was lost, but I was sure of one thing: I couldn't give up. But the question was, would I find Clara, or would I lose myself in this nightmare? In the darkness, time slipped away, disorienting me. I cried out for Clara, my voice fading into the abyss. Each breath felt heavy, and every second in the void chipped away at my resolve. But then, amidst the oppressive blackness, I sensed a flicker of light, a glimmer on the horizon. I pushed myself toward it, propelled by desperation. The feeling of urgency pulled me closer until I stumbled through the threshold, gasping for air. I found myself back in the house, the dim light of the landing surrounding me. It was unsettlingly quiet, and I hesitated, fear creeping back in. Moments ago, I had felt the burning pull of the mystery. Now, that fire bordered on dread. The energy from the crystals still throbbed in my veins as I caught my breath. Were they free? Had the others escaped, or had the house claimed them once again? I needed to know. Cautiously, I moved to the staircase. The shadows in the corners seemed less threatening now, like a fading memory. I reached the top and dared to look around, but all was still. "Clara?" I whispered, the sound echoing back to me. The house held its breath. From the farthest room, I heard the familiar whisper, now clear and urgent. "Help me." My pulse quickened. I hesitated, remembering the man's warning. The house made me feel so small. "No, I won't let it win," I told myself firmly, bounding toward the source of the whisper. I pushed open the door, and my heart sank. It was the attic, a familiar setting, but somehow transformed. I stepped inside, the air colder, weighted with history. The photos still hung on the wall, their faces staring back at me, but now there was something different about the room. I felt the weight of expectation, a tension that gripped my throat. I moved closer to the photographs. Could someone be trapped in them? I couldn't shake the feeling that the answers were close. I picked one up. A woman who looked remarkably like Clara stared back, eyes pleading. "Clara?" I tried again, my voice trembling. The room responded. The walls seemed to shudder, the shadows elongating. Suddenly, from the corner of the attic, the figure emerged again. My heart raced, dread curling in my stomach at the sight of the gaunt man. "You shouldn't have come back," he hissed, his voice a rasp of menace. But this time, I stood my ground. "I need to find Clara." "What did you do to her?" he snarled, fury etched on his face. "You're meddling in things you don't understand. Clara is part of this house now. You cannot save her." I glanced back at the photographs, determination igniting inside me. "Don't you see? She's trapped. I can set her free." "No." He lunged for me, but I sidestepped, quickening my pace as I reached back toward the photographs. "Mistakes can be undone," I said, voice steady despite the panic rising. I grabbed a picture with Clara's face and tore it from the wall. The instant I did, the energy in the room shifted. A sound like a collective gasp echoed through the space. In that moment, the walls began to quiver, the shadows receding as the glowing light surged upward. I felt it, the pulse of the house giving way to the power I had awakened. "Help me." Clara's voice soared, and I felt a pull, an invisible thread tethering us together. I realized then this was Clara's game. The whispers weren't just echoes of lost souls, they were cries for release. I focused on the photograph, whispering, "I will help you." And with that, I threw the picture onto the floor, shattering it. Light erupted, swirling around me, and the man screamed in rage, but I couldn't hear it over the roar of liberation. Clara was coming back. As the energy in the attic surged, faces emerged from the walls, their expressions shifting from despair into tranquility. They rose up, ethereal and free, their laughter washing over me like a wave. "Thank you," they murmured, a chorus of voices harmonizing into a soothing melody. I felt a weight lift from my chest as Clara's presence filled the room, soft yet powerful. "Thank you for believing in me," she said, her voice clear now. But there was something unfinished. I turned to the man, who stood frozen in place, a look of horror twisting his features. "You can't hold them anymore. You are part of this too." The air grew heavy again, and the shadows darkened as the house recoiled. My heart pounded as I stepped back, the past clawing at my edges, but Clara's light shielded me. "Leave this place!" I shouted, willing it to be true. It had taken from us for too long. Suddenly, the walls rumbled, shaking violently as the shadows swirled toward the man, the house demanding its price. I understood in that moment, the house wouldn't let anyone leave willingly. The cycle could only be broken from within. The man's form disintegrated into shadows, consumed by the very darkness that had shaped him. I felt a chill run through me, but then I could breathe. The sunlight streamed into the attic, illuminating everything around me as the house began to change. Bits of crumbling wood and dust fell away, and Clara's presence solidified next to me, radiant and whole. "Let us leave together," she said softly, the warmth of her spirit igniting hope in me. And just like that, I felt lighter than air. As we moved toward the light and out into the open air, I heard the whispers fade behind us, the last remnants of a story finally told. Stepping outside, I looked back at the house. It stood there, an empty shell, but something felt different. The memories would remain, but perhaps now they're free from their torment. I turned back to the lake, the distant sound of laughter filling the air, my curiosity finally sated. Still, there were questions left unanswered. What truly happened to the others? What of the man? But for now, I had enough. Life continued on, and peace washed over me in waves. As I drove away, I could feel Clara's warmth beside me, still echoing with the laughter of those lost but finally freed. I ventured forward, knowing that I'd never revisit that house, nor would I need to. Somewhere along the way, I had found my own light, and I finally felt at peace.